I was out fighting missiles in the Red Sea when the divorce papers hit my inbox. 13 years of marriage gone in a single PDF attachment, just like that. She'd already drained the savings and moved her lover into our house. I sacrificed everything. For this job, for this country, and they literally stole my life while I was defending yours. The betrayal was saltier than the seawater. But that wasn't the worst part. The hidden camera in my house revealed my wife's new man wasn't just some deadbeat she was cheating with, he was a spy. They were using my house to sell military intel, threatening the lives of hundreds of my shipmates. I couldn't scream. I couldn't beg, but I could fight back. This is the story of how a Navy petty officer used cyber warfare skills to crush a national espionage ring, right from my own living room. If you've ever fought betrayal and craved justice, hit subscribe. Right now, let's stand with Alex and protect other military families. Where are you listening from tonight, and what betrayal did you overcome? Jenkins, my bunkmate, saw my face. Alvarez said you looked like you saw a ghost at Chow, he asked. What's up? Just stuff back home, I replied. He nodded, and that was it. Navy guys know when to shut up. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. Since 2023, 6 months before deployment, things started shifting. Little things. Sarah stopped asking about my day. She was suddenly working late at the elementary school admin office, doing yoga 3 times a week but never breaking a sweat. New clothes, new friends I never met, a new passcode on her phone. I suggested we talk, but she brushed it off as stress. I didn't confront her or go through her things, I'm not that guy, but I wasn't blind either. So, I quietly took some steps to protect myself. Nothing dramatic, just precaution. I put all the key papers in a safe deposit box, birth certificate, marriage license, the house deed from my VA loan, my cybersecurity certs. I moved my grandfather's watch and my mother's silver, the stuff that mattered. I opened a separate bank account, diverting some of my Navy pay, not enough for her to notice, but enough to keep me from going broke if things went south. I installed an independent hidden camera system at home, encrypted, server access only to me. Sarah and Mark could easily disable the old system. That night, I realized this would save my life, not just my assets. The night before deployment, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Stay safe." Her eyes were dry, like she was saying goodbye to a colleague, not her husband heading into combat. I should have known then, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. I met Sarah at a Navy charity event in 2011 and we got married in 2012. She said she was proud of my service, but she never really got it. She kept asking when I'll get a real job with that tone of voice, like my uniform was a Halloween costume. After 15 years, she still hadn't figured out the Navy was my career. We bought the house in 2014. It was ours. I was the only one on the VA loan, but I added her name to the deed. That's what married people do, share everything my folks passed. Away within 4 years of each other, leaving me a little cash for a substantial rainy day fund. I deployed 3 times during our marriage. Every time I came back, Sarah was a little more distant, more restless. She'd kiss me, but the strange perfume smelled nothing like her usual soap, like she was playing a character she was tired of. "I didn't sign up to be a Navy wife," she'd say. I tried to connect, calling constantly from the ship, but she grew cold. Sometimes I'd just hear her sigh on the other end, and it felt like the satellite cable was freezing up from the sheer coldness of it all. In 2023, things changed. Sarah got moody when I called, and one time she claimed to be at yoga, but I heard a champagne cork pop and men laughing. She kept saying we had nothing in common anymore. I should have screamed. But I don't handle things that way. Never have. My dad taught me, think before you speak. Be sure before you act. So I watched. I prepared quietly.
because my gut told me something was coming.
And in this life, you learn to trust your gut. That's why I was never going to be a complete victim. 2 weeks after the divorce email, I was in the comms room when my phone buzzed. Bank app alert. Sarah had been transferring money weekly, small amounts, then bigger ones. The huge withdrawal started the day I deployed. Another one hit, $120,000, almost everything left.
I put the pen down.
The joint account balance was $50.
After 13 years?
I had to use an unauthorized sat link hidden during my break, risking disciplinary action if the commander caught me. I hung up, standing in the corridor, listening to the waves crash and my shipmates talking to their families, normal life happening while mine shattered. That's when I realized this wasn't just a divorce. This was a robbery.
And I wasn't letting it go. That's when Jenkins found me.
Alvarez said you looked like hell at dinner, he said. What happened? My wife cleaned out the accounts and moved her boyfriend in. Filed for divorce last week. Jenkins didn't waste time. He just asked, "What's your plan?" "Not sure," I replied. He nodded.
You need anything, you tell me. I couldn't sleep.
I logged into the hidden camera system. The footage showed a strange truck, a guy I'd never met walking our dog using my coffee mug, wearing my navy hoodie. Sarah was laughing in the kitchen, the one I remodeled. I zoomed in and spotted a tattoo on Mark's back, a symbol of a dangerous criminal group I'd researched. Something shifted in me. Not anger, but something colder, clearer. I immediately got my laptop ready to contact David on a secure channel. I called David on my secure channel, paranoid about getting caught, knowing discovery would end my career.
I need legal help. Secret. Urgent, I'd written earlier.
David replied, "Call me on the burner." When I hung up, I knew exactly what to do. No screaming.
No threats. No confrontation.
I just had to wait, watch, and let her actions become her own trap. 2 months later, I flew back. I didn't tell Sarah. I checked into a San Diego hotel and met David 10 miles out.
You look like hell, he said. I feel like it, I replied.
David gave me a folder, house papers, loan docs, bank statements. Then he pulled out a separate sheet. Found something juicy when I dug into your financials. It was a refinance application with my signature, except it wasn't mine. The middle initial was wrong. The handwriting didn't match. Sarah did this? I asked, already knowing the answer. David nodded. 3 months ago. Used the home's equity to pull out $330,000. Your signature was mandatory because of the VA loan. She forged my name, put the house up for collateral, then drained the accounts and filed for divorce. The injury to my left hand got me light duty in the comms room, where I used every spare hour to secretly plan, like analyzing radar signals during a hurricane. Sarah added Mark as a co-applicant on the loan, David said, sliding the folder across the diner table. The smell of burnt toast and coffee hitting us. The guy's got a record, 2 DUIs and a fraud conviction in 2020. What are my options now? I asked, my voice raw, staring at a coffee stain on the napkin, the San Diego sun blinding through the glass. David smirked, his eyes sharp as a knife on the deck of the USS Liberty. We have a few plays, but what do you want first? I paused, the sound of the Red Sea waves mixing with the clatter of forks in the diner.
I want back what's mine, and I wanted to see the consequences. David nodded, his eyes lighting up like he just hacked a server. Got it. I'll dig deeper. I consulted a JAG lawyer from the hotel, asking about divorce procedures, careful to keep the Mark angle secret to protect the plan. The next day, I drove past the house.
The California sun glared off Sarah's car. Mark's beat-up truck wasn't there. I parked down the street, gripping the wheel, feeling like I was back in the comms room, waiting for a signal. Part of me wanted to kick the door in and ask her why, but no, that wasn't the strategy. Instead, I drove to the bank. I met the loan officer who handled the RIA fee. I showed him my military ID and my driver's license with my real signature, then put the forged document right next to it. The wrong middle initial was glaring. The guy turned pale, pen trembling.
I have to report this immediately, he choked out.
I know, I told him. I already filed a police report. That night, my phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Who did you talk to at the bank? Mark said someone was asking questions. I stared at the screen, the hotel neon light blinking through the curtains. I didn't reply. The next day, I filed an official protest against the refi with the San Diego County office. I registered a formal notice, no changes to the house without my verified signature. 2 days later, Sarah called. I let it go to voicemail. Alex, we need to talk. The bank is calling about the house.
What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can talk like adults. Like adults.
The same phrase from the divorce email slicing into my gut.
I stayed silent. David called that afternoon.
They froze the refi money. And guess what?
Mark borrowed your truck, right? Yeah, I said, checking my internal radar.
He got arrested this morning for driving on a suspended license from those DUIs. They impounded the truck. Good, I said, a little smirk playing on my mouth like I'd just locked a Houthi target. It gets better, David continued. The cops found a USB drive in his truck, encryption software the type used for ghost comms. Traces link him to a group in Yemen. Mark's working for an organization called Shadow Nexus, doing ops for the Houthis for cash. I closed my eyes, the smell of diesel from the ship flooding my memory. Is Sarah involved in this? Unclear, but her laptop has a Trojan on it, installed via the school network. That secure messaging app Mark gave her, disguised as student privacy protection? It was stealing intel. I was sitting on the edge of the hotel bed, the neon light flashing outside the window. This was a whole different ball game. Part of me wanted to call Sarah, warn her, that old habit of trying to save everything. But then I remembered the camera footage, Mark drinking my coffee, sleeping in my bed, Sarah laughing in my kitchen, my house, my dog, my life, tossed out like trash. My loyalty wasn't to her anymore. It was to the ship, to my shipmates, and to my honor. I put out that thought like a cigarette butt. The next morning, I met the bank fraud investigator, Thompson. This happens more than you think, he droned, spreading papers on the table.
Husband deploys, wife sees an opportunity. What now?
I asked, arms crossed, the gauze from my injury scratching my shirt. We froze the fraudulent refi money. But there's a problem. About $165,000 vanished. The savings are gone too, I leaned in. Where did it go? Thompson shifted.
I can't share details.
But you can subpoena the records. I leaned closer. I was fighting UAVs in the Red Sea. If this is national security, I need to know now.
My house, my fake signature, my money. My voice was cold as a late-night deck watch.
Thompson slowly turned his computer screen toward me. These are the refi account transactions. I scanned the list.
Multiple transfers to Daniel Carter, not Mark. A name I didn't know.
Who is Daniel Carter?
I asked, voice low and sharp.
Thompson shrugged.
Sorry, that's privileged information. I called David as soon as I left the bank, standing in the scorching San Diego sun.
Daniel Carter, I said.
Let me run it, David replied, excitement thick in his voice.
An hour later, he called back.
Got him.
Carter is a real estate broker. Specializes in quick cash sales. Looks like Sarah was planning to sell your house. I recognized I had to earn Mark's absolute trust to expose him. I started building the counter plan, working with David to use Mark's own Trojan against him. This was a deadly gamble, but I needed solid proof to crush the spy ring and protect my ship. I sank onto a park bench, the air knocked out of me. Sell the house. Yep, the transfers were deposits to list the house. But better yet, Carter's worked with Mark before. 3 times in the last 2 years.
Alex, Mark has a pattern. He targets military wives, pushes them to sell the house below market value, then splits the cash with Carter. So this wasn't just Sarah leaving me.
This is an organized operation. It might be, David said carefully. I found 3 similar cases. Houses sold cheap, Mark took his cut and vanished. Sarah could be a victim, or she could be in on it. The FBI can take time to build a case, but I can't wait. If Mark used a Trojan to fool me, I'm going to use that same tech to turn my living room into a digital battlefield and expose this whole treasonous operation. Are other military families involved? Yeah, at least 3 others. I contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. This crosses state lines and involves VA loans. They're very interested. That night, I sat in the hotel room, drinking a beer, neon light blinking. I thought about Sarah. Was she deceiving me for 13 years? Or was she just Mark's puppet? Did it matter? My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Alex, call me. The bank said something about fraud. Mark got arrested in your truck.
I don't know what's going on. I stared at the message, the blue light reflecting on my face.
I typed, who is Daniel Carter? 3 dots appeared. She typed, then stopped. Typed again, stopped again. Finally, I don't know what you're talking about. The 165,000, the transfers, listing the house. No response for 10 minutes. Then, it's not what you think. I didn't reply. My heart raced, worried Sarah would alert Mark and ruin the plan before the FBI could move. The next morning, David called. The FBI wants to meet. They've been watching Mark and Carter for a month. Your case can break this ring wide open. I met the FBI agents at the San Diego field office, Agents Patel and Donovan, both serious, taking notes on everything I and David collected. Patel tapped his pen on the notebook. You've gathered a lot of information, Corrigan. We need all the data to build a rock-solid case. Everything I have is here.
I want them to pay. What about Sarah? I asked, my voice low.
They exchanged glances. We're determining the extent of her involvement, Donovan said carefully. Did she ever mention financial stress? Pressure to sell? I nodded, agreeing to keep silent. But Mark had made a fatal mistake. He didn't know that a Navy petty officer fresh off a Red Sea deployment can read radar and cipher code better than any agent. I was done waiting for the law. It was time to initiate my own do-or-die plan. She used to say we were house poor, that we should sell and downsize.
I didn't see the need.
The mortgage was affordable. Patel noted it. When did that start? About 6 months ago.
Right when she met Mark. What about the refinance?
Donovan asked. She never discussed it. She forged my signature while I was deployed. They kept asking questions. The air in the room was heavy, like the ship's deck before a storm. When they finished, Patel handed me his card. We'll be in touch. Do not confront your wife or Mark. We need to build this case carefully. I nodded, feeling like I was locking onto a radar target. The plan had begun, and I wouldn't stop until Mark's scheme was demolished. That night, I drove back to the neighborhood, parking a few houses down. Mark's truck was back. Sarah's car was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Meet me at Balboa Park. We need to talk face to face. I sat across from David at the diner, the smell of toast and coffee everywhere, San Diego sunlight streaming through the window. I slid my phone over, showing him Sarah's text. Meet me at Balboa Park. David shook his head, his glasses slipping down his nose. Don't go. Meeting her now will only distract you. I'm not going, I replied, taking a gulp of bitter coffee. But I want to know what she does today when she thinks I'm showing up. We drove to my neighborhood at 9:30 a.m., parking across the street, hidden behind some trees. At 9:45, Sarah walked out. Thin sweater, hair up, sunglasses covering half her face. She got in her car and drove toward Balboa Park. David glanced at me. Follow her? No need, I said, my eyes locked on the house. I felt like I was in the USS Liberty's comms room, waiting for the radar ping. I installed hidden cameras inside and out last year. Everything streams to my encrypted cloud server. 20 minutes later, a car parked in the driveway. Real estate company logo on the door. Daniel Carter stepped out, camera in hand. Mark appeared, shaking his hand. They talked in the yard, then went inside. David turned, a slight grin. You kept that camera thing quiet. It wasn't necessary yet, I replied, opening the app, tilting the screen for David to see. Carter and Mark in the living room. Carter was taking pictures. Mark was pointing at the walls, showing the place off. I turned up the volume. Carter said, we'll list it this weekend. I've got a cash buyer ready, just like always, Mark asked. How much? Listed at $470,000, they pay $420,000. Everyone's happy. What about the husband? Sarah said he's making trouble. Carter waved a hand. They all do that. Just a little noise. He's busy deployed on duty.
He'll take the settlement and shut up. I gripped my phone, my heart pounding like I just locked onto a healthy target.
On the screen, Mark pulled out a USB drive. He was bragging to Carter about military intel worth $2 million, aircraft carrier positions, subroutes, airstrike schedules. That safe messaging app Mark gave Sarah, disguised as student privacy protection. It was a Trojan, cutting off my comms and stealing top-secret data via the school network. That's when I realized the only way to expose him was to use his own digital weapon. I worked with David to turn Mark's Trojan against him. It was a suicide mission. I started leaking carefully quarantined real intel to gain Shadow Nexus's absolute trust. The first 2 times,
I intentionally exposed the real location of an MQ-9 drone and a minor patrol route.
the Houthis struck, destroying the $30 million UAV. Every time I hit send, I only had 3 hours before the ship moved. My heart hammered, terrified Mark would get suspicious or my shipmates would catch me committing high treason. The final time, David and I flooded the network with massive fake intel, a huge carrier operation and airstrikes at a decoy location. Shadow Nexus took the bait, demanding verification. One faulty signal almost crashed everything. David fixed the encryption at the last second, while I sat in the hotel room staring at a radar screen, praying the plan would work. If it didn't, the USS Liberty was the real target. Hundreds of my shipmates would die. On the day of the operation, I presented all the evidence to my commanding officer. He was stone cold. "You risked the security of the entire ship, Corrigan. If you fail, you face court-martial." I swallowed, the pressure overwhelming, but I knew this was the only shot to end the conspiracy. At 2 p.m., the three-pronged attack launched. The U.S. Navy ambushed the Houthis at the fake location. Explosions echoed over the radio reports. Their base was pulverized. Simultaneously, the FBI kicked down my front door, dragging Mark and Carter out of the living room in handcuffs, the sunlight glinting off the metal. Overseas, the airstrikes leveled the Shadow Nexus HQ. Their network signal went dark. In that moment, justice was served. My shipmates were safe. The treason was crushed. Sarah cooperated with the FBI, claiming Mark manipulated her through the Trojan, making her believe the refi and sale were a way out of debt. She relinquished all claims to the house and joint assets to avoid prosecution. I watched the documents being hauled out of the house. 13 years flashed by, the sweet start, the crushing betrayal now.
I walked away. I chose justice over forgiveness. My phone rang.
Agent Patel, we recorded Mark and Carter discussing fraud and selling military data, espionage, fraud, forgery. We need your formal statement. Absolutely, I replied, looking at the piles of documents leaving my house. The federal case moved fast. Mark got 12 years for espionage, fraud, and identity theft. Carter got 18. They exposed co-conspirators targeting military families across 3 states. Sarah lost everything. The house, the money, the marriage. The divorce was finalized clean, no contest, 5 months later. Sarah's last text arrived. "I didn't want it to end this way." I looked at the screen. The pain was gone. I scrolled past the text and hit delete. My loyalty wasn't to her anymore. It was to the ship, to my shipmates, and to my honor. The commander called after the operation. "You risked the ship, Corrigan, but you saved hundreds of lives and crushed a spy ring. Major credit erases the offense. Next time, report it sooner." I exhaled, the pressure of the ocean finally lifting. 3 months later, the Secretary of Defense visited my rented cabin in Oregon. He shook my hand, looking at the scar on my left arm. "You fought on the battlefield and in the computer network.
Hundreds of your shipmates are alive because of you. I sold the San Diego house. I couldn't live in those walls of memory and betrayal."
I used the money to buy a small cabin outside Oregon, 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a creek running behind it. I retired early after 16 years in the Navy. Enough was enough. I adopted a German shepherd, naming him Radar. I do freelance cyber consulting. My pension covers the rest. One evening, I got a letter from a woman in Norfolk, a Navy wife. She wrote, "You don't know me, but you saved my house and my family. The FBI said thanks to you, 9 other military families kept their assets and military data safe." I pinned that letter to my cabin wall. Whenever the memories of the Red Sea or Sarah's eyes come back, I look at it. The pain of betrayal became a shield, protecting hundreds of lives, from my shipmates on the USS Liberty to these strangers' families. I reach down and stroke Radar, my German shepherd, curled at my feet, and look out the window at the Oregon sunset.
I fought on 2 fronts.
And finally, I won. Mark and Carter are still locked up. The system this time worked. I take it one day at a time, building a new life, one that no one can steal or betray, one that is finally mine. The espionage, the fraud, and the betrayal cost me 13 years of my life, but I reclaimed my honor and, more importantly, saved hundreds of my shipmates. This story isn't just about a bad divorce. It's about the silent sacrifice of our soldiers and the pain they endure fighting battles on 2 fronts. If you believe our servicemen and women deserve protection, hit subscribe right now to support our fight for justice, ensuring no military family faces this kind of treason again.
After all, did Alex really win, or did he lose everything?
What do you think is the price of justice?